What's up, dude?
What's up, Dave? How you doing, man?
Good, man. It's real weird not sitting next to you.
Yeah. It's a whole different vibe for sure.
Yeah, COVID's got us fucked, dude.
Yeah. So if you guys just me and Dave usually link up and actually do this in person, but
our lives are pretty intertwined. Yeah, our lives are pretty intertwined already, I feel like. So it's like it made sense, but then it was like, hey, like we're up over 8,000 people.
Yeah, it's like 1 in 10 people in Columbus have COVID.
Somebody said the other day it was like 1 in 300 in like the US or some shit.
Yeah. God. I think Columbus specifically might just be like super fucked.
Oh my God, dude. Yeah, so we're fucked.
We're in the purple, whatever that means.
Yeah, which I think he was moving the chains on that fucking number for a long time. Like, he was like, we can't get to purple. And it was like, what is purple? Like, he finally accepted it, you know? So, yeah, we're fucked. We're all fucked right now. So if you're listening in Columbus, Ohio, stay safe and quit leaving your house, I guess, if you don't have to. I have to every fucking day, and it's nerve-wracking, so.
Yeah, it's tough. So welcome to Tome of Chaos. This is the podcast where we crowdsource a religion that doesn't suck. Mm-hmm. And this week we have the most special guest to me, my wife, Teake.
Hello.
Hey,
she's
honey.
Super special.
How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing good.
Yeah.
Had a pretty good day. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What did you do today?
I feel like I spent the morning doing whatever I wanted because my kids were just watching TV and I didn't care.
That's rad.
I have to be like, hey, don't care about this. Just let it happen.
Yeah.
Nice. And then I hung out with my friend and then I did my mother-in-law's hair. And Walter did my hair with me today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I helped.
Hell yeah.
That was a time.
Dude, that's so rad. Doing hair. We're, me, Teake, and my wife are all hair people. So just doing hair all over the place.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if we met at the salon or if we knew each other before that.
I can't remember. I think I knew you before I knew Walter. So it was probably the salon.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. But it's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been forever. It's been like 10 years or... Because me and Sarah both worked at the salon for 10 years. So,
the first 2 employees, right?
Yep.
That shit's crazy. So you guys go way back too. So I do think that our lives have been pretty intertwined for a long time.
Definitely.
Yeah, we got a nice little entanglement going on here.
For sure. For sure. We're all having kids and trying to figure out that stress.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to let them watch TV. Dude, it's been real rough. Just Edie's in this mode where it's like, I'm going to scream to get what I need, you know? And it's just like, please stop yelling at me. Like, I don't know what to do. So.
Yeah, that shit is tough.
It's tough, man. It's the age she's in, you know?
Yeah, she's about to have a little breakthrough and then things will be better in that department. But
For sure.
Yeah. That's
a
challenge.
Yeah, it's super challenging. But I think that, you know, what's going to be cool is diving deep into Teake's mind, especially as parenting, because I think she's an awesome mom too. And
fantastic.
She does. Yeah, she's just cool people. Where should we start at?
I would just assume the early days. I feel like that's what generally happens.
Yeah.
Baby Teake.
Yeah.
Baby Teake, Naples, Florida.
Or we could start from yesterday. Those are your options.
we let's start at
honestly, when you say the mind of Teake, I'm like, well, we could start from yesterday or even like 2 hours ago.
Yeah, for sure.
Or it could be, you know.
We could do a memento episode. Like it's all twisted and reversed and shit.
Yeah.
There's so much always going on. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's true.
For sure. Well, let's do it the right way. Let's start at the beginning, Teake.
Okay.
What was childhood like for you?
Well, I was actually thinking about this today, I think, or talking about it. yesterday or today. My childhood was mainly me. My mom was a single parent for most of my life, and I didn't have brothers or sisters. So I was thinking the other day about like things I would do as a kid to connect with other people, and like this weird way that I felt like if I watched live TV at the same time, like as other people, it was like this weird connection I could make. And I literally thought about that yesterday and was like, oh my God, I was like a really lonely kid. And like, cause I've thought about before being like, not just like, not lonely, but being an only child. Like that's a big stereotype that's out there for kids. And so I've always kind of thrown myself in that category about certain things. But then I was like, but I'm in this like other thing of like, I didn't have any other family. When my mom was like, had to work full time and was gone a lot, there wasn't anybody else there. So,
yeah. So do you feel like you kind of had to raise yourself a little bit?
Yeah. And you know, when I was younger, I was just in the after school program. I was like the first one dropped off and the last one to leave always. Like I was always late to school. My mom always picked me up late.
Latchkey kids represent.
Yeah, exactly. We called it SAC, and I knew other kids called it latchkey. So I was always like, why are we the ones that call it this?
Yeah, SAC. What a bad name.
It was weird.
What is SAC? Like sack lunch?
No, I think it was like SAC, and it's I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know latchkey either. I don't know what that means. I always thought that it was because they latched and keyed the building, so nobody could fucking get in and get us.
I think latchkey was like your kid has their own key to the house, right? Because like maybe they need to get in themselves.
Yeah, that's smart. That's better than me thinking that we just got locked in a closet.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm right, but it's a little more coherent.
Yeah, dude, like, for sure. So.
Working.
Yeah. And I mean, my parents they got married when they found out that they were going to have me. That was in Florida. And up until recently, I thought that they were married for a couple years. And then my mom and I left, but I guess it was only a couple months after I was born. Wow. So I was born in Florida, and I will forever be like a Florida baby at heart because I love the sun and I love the water, and that's where I want to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like burned into me. It's like my peaceful place. And I think a lot of people feel like that. But being like from like that, taking some of my identity in that is like, I love it.
Yeah, I didn't even know that about you. That you were, how long were you in Florida for?
I was just like really young, probably under 1.
Really?
Yeah, and didn't really go back much. I think it was just like my mom talked about it so much when I was little. So it was like such a big part of my life, probably because I was a blonde, tan, water loving kid. Yeah. So I think she just kind of used it as a like, kind of like I brought it with me to Ohio.
Oh yeah, especially Ohio is like the grayest place in the world.
But yeah, we came here because we had family here. This is where my mom grew up. In Westerville. So, and then a few years like into my childhood, like she met somebody or, I think it was a high school reunion, and she ended up with this guy out. So they were married from the time I was 8 to 12, and he had 2 kids. So I would see them on occasion, but he didn't have it wasn't like a 50-50 custody, I don't think.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was, but he just didn't see them very much. And yeah, we were not close. He didn't like me. So
shit.
That's like a thing that plays out later in my life.
Yeah. So real quick backtrack, like did your mom, you both left Florida and you left your dad there?
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys like got out.
Yeah, and I saw him until I was about 7, like occasionally.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen him since, except for like one lunch when I was like 15, because my dad, I'm guessing, has different mental health issues, and called my mom and was like, I want to make Teake this thing I want to make or something. And he kind of harassed us about it. This was when I was 15. So she was like, okay, like make her a waterbed. And he did. And he brought it down and I saw him for like a half hour. And then I never talked to him again.
Wow.
Just like really weird. It was a weird situation. But yeah, they got divorced when I was very young. We moved up here. And then she met my stepdad, who I think was the bigger influence on me as far as a dad goes.
Yeah.
And it was pretty negative. Like I remember after my mom, like when I was an adult, talking to my grandma and being like, I just feel like I always felt like he didn't want me there. And did he ever want me to live with you? Like, do you remember that? And she was like, I don't remember that, but it wouldn't surprise me. So that was kind of affirming of like how that time was for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's brutal.
It's pretty clear from what you've told me about that time that he was not a loving person in general. Right. And it definitely didn't extend to you, whatever there was there.
Yeah, he was an alcoholic. He was manipulative and really messed with people's emotions a lot.
Yeah.
It wasn't good.
One of those like gaslighter types.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That
Not
sucks.
good. So, but I'm just glad that she ended up being like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it totally seems like your mom was, you know, I think a lot of times when you hear stories about that, it's like moms keep trying to find love, you know, and or sticking with it or like trying to be loyal to bring like a male figure into their kid's life and shit. But it seemed like your mom was pretty quick to be like, this isn't good for me or my daughter.
It took a while. I mean, it was like 4 years of them being married.
Yeah.
And there were a few times where we were going to leave and it didn't work out. Like she stayed. The time we ended up leaving was actually, we ended up sneaking out of the house to like literally had people coming over and moving us out during the day while he was gone because he was a scary person.
Oh, shit.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Worked out.
Jesus. I didn't know that. That's brutal.
Yeah, it's wild shit.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me was just what I carry with me now that's hard is he was an extremely critical person and always criticized me as like a young kid. And I think that that's like really hard, like criticize the way I did things and the way I ate food and the like what I was wearing and what, you know, why I was doing stuff. Yeah. He was always like that and never positive. And I think that that's the biggest thing I carry with me because I kind of see that stuff in myself, like a critical nature.
Yeah.
So that stuff always bothers me when I kind of see similarities between like, you know, people in the past and who raised me and the different things that are negative about them that I have. Ew.
Yeah, for sure. I can attest to that. I think that a lot of times I look at the way I relate with my kids and I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly something my dad or mom would do, you know? And it irks me real heavy. It's like, why do I do this, you know?
Yep.
But I think it gets burned into you a little bit. Like, it's like, that's what it's supposed to be, you know? Your mind like it latches onto it.
Well, yeah. And there's only so much you can do about that. But I think for me, I'm like, well, I can apologize.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
That's what I have to offer. And it's more than I got. So
yeah,
it's helpful.
Yeah, for sure. So what was, so that, you know, that hits some of your adolescence, like, you know, are we leading into high school days? Like Teake in Westerville?
Yeah. Let's kind of think. Yeah, we lived right in Westerville, in like the heart of Westerville at that time.
Yeah.
And those are the most times that I spent like not having her around because I was old enough, you know, that she worked late, or at this point, because of how her marriage was, she was like, I can have a life now.
Yeah.
I can have friends and I can go out and I can do things. And so she did that too. But we always got along really well. And there was a period of time, I think when I was like 12, and maybe a little bit older than that I was frustrated a lot because she still didn't seem like she was around.
Yeah.
But that changed when I was old enough to really like understand that I'm not the only person. You know, like when you're a kid, it's like your parents aren't people.
Yeah.
So I think as I got older, I really understood like, no, she's a person with her own life and she works really hard.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that definitely helped us get along, and just, I don't know, getting older just helps that with, I think, kids a lot of times.
Well, I think your mom was also a person who probably, from what I know of her, always like related with you kind of like you were her peer. Like she doesn't seem like the type to really be like, I'm your parent. Here's what's going down. So it's probably like for her, once you were at the same place as her, you know, on kind of a hierarchy level, that she felt a lot more comfortable just like being your friend.
Right. Like that's what she felt like she could do naturally and stuff. Yeah. That makes sense.
And I think that's super sweet. And I feel like that's probably like when you guys bonded the most was probably like, you know, hanging out together, watching movies, having drinks, whatever. Yeah,
definitely. I think you're right. It was a good time where there wasn't a lot of pressure or tension or anything like that. Yeah. And it was good. Those years and leading. I mean, I was drinking with her at the bar on occasion before I was 21. Yeah. So then when I was 21, I was like, where am I supposed to go? They already think I'm like, they already.
Oh my God. I can't go in there and be like, I'm real excited to show you my ID because I've been drinking here. Fuck yeah. That's so rad.
My mom was just that person that she could be everybody's friend and was very social. And so people were just happy she was around. So if I was with her, I just got thrown in the mix. So
yeah, dude, of the times like I've spent time with your mom, like she was like a social butterfly.
Yeah.
Right. Definitely. A very people person and like brought everybody in, you know?
Yeah. And she did that in our family too. She was a big, she was like the core connection in a lot of ways to a lot of the people in my family, because that is another thing, is that my family is like riddled with divorce. I think my grandma's been married 4 or 5 times. Uncle the same. My mom was married a couple times, and then it extends. Like I don't talk to my dad's side at all or him. But I have like enough family on my side because I have so many like grandparents that were married to different grandparents. And
that reminds me, I don't have in my family, people like always just stuck together, even though it was terrible, you know? And, but Sarah's family's real like that. They're like just 100 years of divorce, like over and over again.
About some of that.
That's it. I don't even understand how that is. Like I've only met like, I don't know, 4 of Sarah's 8 siblings. Like it's crazy. I don't even know how to like, I'm like, wait, who is this person? Yeah, for sure. So
you were like, I mean, it was like, I'm trying to keep track of how many like grandpas and grandmas you have, like, and like, I can't figure it out. And it's only half of her like family tree. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the dad's side's not even factored in. I'm like, wait, which grandmas? Which grandpas?
And part of that is because the situation's so weird with everybody and their parents. Like no one, almost no one has a good relationship with both of their parents.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time that, again, going back to my mom, she was like a connection to all of that because she kept herself in a position of neutral. Like my mom was a very passive, very laid back person, very, very non-judgmental. So she was able to like maintain relationships with everybody from everywhere.
Yeah, when all the beefs and like little dramas were stirring up, she was kind of just like outside of it.
Yeah. Yep. And very good at that. So when she died, I was like, they better not think I'm that person, because I'm not.
I'm not going to be the glue.
Sorry. I mean, I might try to hold back in words, but my face is going to show you everything, I think.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Words, I'm not even good at holding those back, though.
Yeah.
coming.
You are one real motherfucker for sure.
I appreciate that you say that. Like, I know it's probably like somewhat negative and somehow not that you mean it that way, but
no, I don't mean it that way. I love it. I think that I don't know. I feel like I'm that way. So I love seeing it in other people.
No, I totally agree. I mean, if I were to relate more to one of you guys, I would relate more to you, like from the pod.
Yeah.
I'm like, me and Dave are like the same.
It's super weird. I tell Sarah this all the time. It's like, out of all of our friends, I always feel like I relate more with the wife than the husband. It's like real weird. It like happens every time. It's like, why are you so much more like them? I was like, I don't know, man. It just happens. So, well, and I think that's why me and Walter are cool together. Like,
it makes a lot of sense.
It's fucking crazy. But yeah, I mean, I think you're real, and that probably comes from your mom too. Like, she was real too, you know?
Yeah, she was. I don't feel like I ever saw her struggle with any like confidence issues.
Yeah,
which I think really helps with your like vulnerability and like expressing who you really are.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it the other day because I was like, how am I supposed to like tell my kids about like women's rights, and how am I supposed to teach them now about how to like stand up for yourself and all these things?
Yeah.
And I was like, my mom really didn't like have time to do that stuff, or like, you know, didn't do it, but I know she felt that way. And then I was like, oh my God, she used to be like, do you want to be the first woman president? Do you want to like do this? And she would, and by example of like working a full-time job and careers mostly led by women, like she did that in ways that I just wasn't thinking of. Yeah. So I think that's really cool too. She did what she had to do, but I think she was out of the box in a lot of ways and just like able to pursue things and keep going.
Yeah. You saw it by example. You didn't really necessarily need the words.
Right. Exactly. So that was awesome. And I don't know. She was a very good role model when it came to like me getting into like the work field.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then I was like, after school, I started working when I was like 15. My favorite job was Subway, if I have to be honest.
Subway?
I loved it.
Dude,
Subway.
I feel like that would be a lot like like working at a pizza place. And I like, I'll tell people all day, like one of my favorite jobs ever was a pizza place. Cause like,
it's
there was no hierarchy. Like I was 18 working with like 40-year-olds that like saw me as a peer and shit because we were both working at a fucking pizza place.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And like, you know, people just smoked weed. Like everybody, it was just rad. It didn't feel like a job.
Right.
They just paid me to hang out.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, most of the shifts too, if you're in high school, they're after school, and that's when managers aren't even there anyways.
Yeah, for sure.
Like connected to a gas station, getting cigarettes illegally.
Yeah.
And just
trading pizza for booze and cigarettes was like the best thing as like a 16-year-old.
God, I can hear a song and go back to like sitting out back at Subway smoking cigarettes, Marble Milds.
Yeah, fuck yeah. That's so rad. Hell yeah. So that's Teake the Rebel.
Yeah, that is honestly about as bad as it gets. I just smoked some cigarettes. One time I tried to go sneak out with my friend in the middle of the night, and we got caught, and I think probably cried and, you know, said I was sorry.
Yeah. You were not the rebellious type.
I did have that. I did get kicked out of Easton though, because I went through my thieving.
Yeah. The kleptomania.
Dude, that's rad.
I have to say, that's like, it was a real thing. Like, if you start stealing stuff, it is like an adrenaline rush.
Dude.
like you have to do it.
I probably lifted about $1,000 worth of stuff from the Speedway right by the swimming pool, like in food and shit. Like, like tearing packages in the bathroom and stuffing shit down your pants. Oh, shit.
It's a dangerous road to go down because it's fun.
Hey, you're just ruining corporations' days at that point. I support that shit.
And did they even notice? Like, no,
because I found out recently that those motherfuckers write off those things even if they don't get stolen.
Right.
Because they can write off so much money a year for like lost and stolen items or items that like fucking go out of date or whatever. So they'd write it off anyways. So you were just helping them be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Well, good thing that they have their cushion,
Yeah,
for these people like me.
So Teake, when did you, your mom wasn't religious, huh?
We would go to church on and off growing up. Let me think. I feel like in my head, I remember it being times when it was like needed, like we were in like some sort of crisis at home,
Yeah.
or it was holidays.
Yeah.
And it was like different Christian churches, mostly. And no, that was all they were. I don't think we went to anything that wasn't some sort of denomination of Christianity.
Yeah.
Holidays and in crisis mode, like when my stepdad would be like, no, God came to me and told me I needed to change. Like that shit. That shit would happen. So then it would be like, let's get back to, church and marriage counseling with the pastor.
Yeah.
So stuff like that. And then I actually, in sixth grade, I think it was sixth grade, someone invited me out to the church that we were going to.
Yeah.
So I was involved in that through high school, and then my friends started to leave, and I was studying with older people, and then they left, and it just became kind of like a thing that I always enjoyed, but once all my friends were gone, I was kind of like, what am I doing? Because at that time, that's what was the most fun about it,
Yeah.
The friendships.
Yeah. And just that, I mean, a lot of them were friends that I was already friends with, but like people that I was already friends with at school or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, because that church has a big reach in Westerville.
Yeah. And I mean, this was when it was really small. I was young then, and not super, super small, but yeah, decently. And then, so I left, I think it was like my senior year. And then I was dating somebody for a very long time. And I was like, this just doesn't feel like me. I don't know. This isn't right. I'm depressed. So I broke up with that person. And then I like reached out to a friend and was like, I think I'm going to go back to this church, my church that I was at. And she was like, I actually go there. So that's I linked back up with everything. And at that point, I was also sold because I knew about how the college ministry life was. So I was already sold even before I came back on like what I wanted to do and how I wanted to like live with everybody in the group and stuff.
Yeah.
And I hadn't even met anybody yet. So that was interesting because I do look at that time and think like that does feel like a God thing to have like a lot of desires for things that I didn't even really understand that much about. So that was really interesting. And it was pretty quick. Like that happened pretty quick. I moved into the house with the girls pretty quickly. But I had a job and I was living at home, so it made it very easy to do that too.
Yeah.
And to spell that out a little bit, there's houses of people who go to these home churches in the church that we were a part of. So Teake was moving into a house with, a few roommates.
Yes. And some of my still best friends.
And all dedicated to the church and following, the Bible.
Yeah. Yeah. So you agreed to like pursuing the same thing and like sharing the same lifestyle.
Yeah, we had to sign a contract.
Yeah, it was like, I mean,
not every house did that, but some did.
I have a contract for
was
sure.
Was it called a contract?
It was called a house contract.
Yeah, house contract.
Okay.
It was basically that. I mean, it was used as legal documents at times too, because dudes would mess up and get kicked out or leave. You know what I mean? So it was like to try and stop some of that like weird housing disputes. Because you can't really force someone out of the house if they live there and pay rent. But yeah, so we had to sign a contract.
Crazy.
Yeah. So you lived in the house with the girls. Do you look back on those times as like real fond memories?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of, especially the first house that I lived in, a lot of it was specifically really enjoyable. And I think a lot played into that, you know, like I think it's for me, circumstantial things play into like my moods a lot. So at that point it was like, I had all these friends and I had this place to live and had a job. I had just gotten out of hair school, had a job doing something I want to do. So it was a really good time too.
Yeah.
But that also only happened a few months before I found out then my mom had cancer.
Yeah.
So it was also out of nowhere and really surprising. I'm pretty sure she told me on my birthday, like she had found out right before that. So she had to kind of struggle with like, am I going to tell her when I see her next or am I going to wait?
Is Walter in the picture at this point? Not yet.
No, not yet.
Oh shit. I did not know it was that long of a road.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, dude.
Yeah. So she was young. She was 48. When she found out, and then went through treatment for like under a year, and she was cancer free technically for like a very short amount of time. And then her back started hurting. So she had breast cancer, and when it moves to another organ, it's called metastasize. It metastasized. So it went to her bones. So that's permanent. So you have no idea, you know, at that point, how life is going to look. And it just ended up, you know, going kidney, liver, brain. And that's like, it's just a nightmare. But
fuck yeah, it is.
So, but when she, you know, when we first found out, it was kind of like, let's just get through it. And we weren't really like people to Google anything. And we just listened to doctors, you know, like don't look stuff up. Don't do anything like that, which now that I've listened to Dr. Death, I'm like second guessing that. I'm like, I probably look up everything. Cause I don't know if you guys know about Dr. Death, but pretty terrifying.
You've told me some about it, and it sounds like a hell trip.
Bad doctors.
Really?
Bad doctors making really bad decisions for patients. But anyway, I forget what I was saying. We ended up at one point moving her because she was leaving every appointment crying. And I was like, I think we need to go somewhere else. And luckily we did, because we ended up at OSU at the Spielman Center. And that was an awesome experience. So that's my plea first off for like, if you're not getting care that you're happy with or, you know, in a sensitive situation, like just go it's okay. Go somewhere else, you know, rather be, like if it's psychiatry, if it's therapists, if it's, you know, physical doctors, it's okay to like make decisions for yourself.
Fuck yeah. I mean, I think you got to fire them people sometime. I mean, they're used to it.
I just think about like when I think back to that time for my mom, she was so upset every week, but I didn't feel like it was my place to like say anything. And then immediately it was so different. I'm like, oh man, we just spent like 2 years crying every time we left. But
especially, I mean, we're real lucky for like the James and shit and like the cancer stuff that happens at OSU.
Yeah, people come from all over to get treated there.
Yeah.
It's really wild.
Yeah, so what was that? What was life like then? You know, like, cause you're trying to follow God and like have friends and stuff like that. Like I'm blown away. I didn't know it was that long.
Yeah.
Like I guess in my head, I always like assumed it happened like right around when you met Walter and shit. But
no, it was before. It was like 2009 or 2010.
Yeah.
This was a period of time where with me and God, I like at this point I was like leading in our home church. And I was struggling a lot with the problem of pain and really just having a broader worldview of like suffering, and really struggling with having my eyes open to that in a different way through the, the stuff I was going through with my mom, and being depressed with all of that going on. So, I had a lot of like, I guess, I don't know if I just didn't let myself focus too much on me and my mom's stuff, or if you just get overwhelmed by the general problem of pain and suffering when you're going through stuff like that. But I definitely feel like that was my bigger issue with God, was like the general, like, why did things have to be like this?
Yeah. Why pain and why suffering, and
why can't it just end now? And, I don't know. I wrestled with that a lot. It was a point of tension from that point until when my mom, until this past year.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I still, everybody that I was with was very understanding and very forgiving about those things. Like, I remember going up to teach. I was like, I just need you all to know, as a room full of people, that this is really hard for me and I'm probably going to cry. And everybody was like, okay. I'm like, I'm going to do this teaching because I put a lot of work into it and it was really hard for me to do and whatever. And it was really, it was cool because I was just really raw, and it didn't seem like, at least most people didn't seem uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think I have a burden for making grief not so weird for people.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a taboo thing to talk about, and that really sucks as somebody who's going through it, because then you have to feel like you're the one that's messing things up too. Like, not only do you feel bad, but you also feel like you have to be the one to make sure everybody else feels okay.
Yeah. I think that one of the reasons I'm stoked to talk to you about like this stuff tonight is like with grief, because I feel like I have such a hard time with it. Mm-hmm. And like, I don't know if I never really tried or really had the time. Like I want to keep going through your story and stuff. But I never really, had the time and things like that, especially being in a church that's so like motivated and moving constantly. You know what I mean? Like, to really talk to you, I knew that you were doing a lot of grief work, throughout and stuff. But I do think that you are a person that I really respect for having gone through that stuff. And I think that you have good things to tell people about grieving. And I'm excited to learn about some of that,
Yeah. It's not an easy road, that's for sure. But I feel like I've learned a lot too about how to be okay in a lot of ways. And like, I've also learned a lot from it. Just like, I think I've always been an emotional person, but I didn't know how to be like empathetic, and I didn't understand, a lot of things in that way of like suffering and like living in a place that isn't perfect. Cause in my head, I want to make everything perfect, and it can't be. So in some senses, it's helped me learn how to deal with like, I can't control everything and the world's gray.
Yeah.
I mean, it's never cool to lose your mom or like, somebody that you love and that loves you. Like, that's never going to be okay. That's nothing that I ever like learn is going to make that okay.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of times too, you just think that that's the kind of shit that won't happen to you. Like, people don't think about losing their parents at the age that you did. Yeah.
I mean, and I'm a person that's very like goal focused and goal oriented. So when she was in treatment, that's how I saw that. It's like I'm not going to deal with something I can't deal with yet when it's realistic. All of my anxiety and stuff stems from these like made up places in my brain. When it comes to like real things, it's like, well, no, I can't really go there yet because I don't have all of the information I need.
Yeah.
some story in my head. I can take that wherever.
Right.
I forget what you were saying.
No, I was just saying that, like, I don't know. Let's keep moving. This stuff is like hard, to like go through. Especially because I'm pretty, I'm sure that like a lot of times it felt like, you didn't know what day and time it was, like doing a lot of work and shit. But you said that she went into remission.
Mm-hmm.
And then how long did that last?
Not long. It was maybe into like 6 months, probably, maybe. Then she got sick again, and then that was kind of we'll just see how it goes, and you just gotta hit the cancer where it is.
So they were doing chemo and stuff at that point?
Yeah, for years after this. She was doing chemo, radiation. They have this thing called the cyber knife, and it does your like she was getting that on her back and her bones, and
that's like a laser, right?
Yeah.
Jeez.
So a lot of that was happening. Me and my grandma had a falling out. That was really strange. So we didn't talk even up until my mom died. But at that time, I met Walter.
Yeah, baby boy.
Somewhere in there's me.
It was like, probably pretty like soon after my mom got re-diagnosed. I don't know, maybe a year.
Okay.
Yeah, probably about a year.
I'm fuzzy on the timeline myself, so I have no idea.
I'm fuzzy on time in general.
Yeah. Dude, I fucking like said something to Sarah about something in time, and I was like, yeah, we did that like 3 weeks ago. She was like, that was like a week ago. And I was like, yeah, I'm not good at time.
Same.
So you met Walter.
Yes.
So, yeah. And like Walter, I think that's a good, what was that like, dude? Like, I think that we've talked about you meeting Teake, but I don't know if we talked about like having you both here, like meeting this woman that you loved. And if I know this story, like loved her from day one, and she was going through so much at this point. Like, what was that like for you?
Weird. I think it's hard. Like obviously my struggles are never going to be close to what Teake's are, but to come into a relationship with a person that I love and then meet their mother and I loved your mom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's a different, I don't know, it felt different. Like I felt like there was an expiration date on my relationship with her, which was like weird going into this thing of like, I love your daughter and I want to spend the rest of my life with your daughter, and you're not going to be a part of all of that. Yeah, it was a strange time. I still remember watching, she had me over, we just hung out one time, just me and her, and we watched Dallas Buyers Club. And she made fish sticks. And she was like, I don't know if you can have this sauce because of your allergies. So I just ate like dry fish sticks, and it was like
so gross.
It wasn't great, but it was so like, she's just like so chill. Like to like host your son-in-law or future, I don't remember
when it was.
Yeah, if I was married to you at that point or not, but like just to host me and like treat me like that's like family shit. When you like have someone over and you're like not even worried about impressing them, you're like, I'm microwaving fish sticks.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Well, dude, and
here's a sauce you might be allergic to.
Well, it's funny too because you were vegetarian at this point as well, right?
I think I might. Okay, so maybe this was after we were married because I think I wouldn't have ate the fish sticks.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. She's like, "Here's some fish sticks. I know you can't eat this sauce."
it was post me and Teake's marriage.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely like a whole weird thing coming into the relationship with you, loving your mother, and like, I don't know, I feel like because you're a more functional person, maybe you weren't focused on the finality of things, but as a more downer of a I don't know, fucking more
melancholy.
Yeah, melancholy, there's the word.
Yeah, I
was like, oh, this person's not going to be in my life forever, and that was like a weird thing for me.
Yeah
Sad.
But I mean, I think that it was good timing for Walter to come in, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I remember my mom was very happy about it. My mom loved Walter. So to have that means a lot, you know, that she was able to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And it was nice to have somebody that wanted to be with me and all the like stuff, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think he knew how to navigate it, like saying stuff was weird. Like, yeah, it's a weird situation. Oh, and like a month after we met, I had to get gallbladder surgery.
Yeah.
So he was already at the hospital with like my mom and my grandma or something.
I, as an outsider, remember you two's like relationship and how just like I like you were in love, so I'm not saying this as a way of like it was weird, but it was like you had to move so quickly. You know what I mean? Like things were like rapid, I felt like, because it was like
go ahead.
Well, it was like you got married, you know what I mean? And then it was like kids, you know, and it was like there was this like you knew, like Walter was saying, you knew there was a finality to things, so you wanted to like get those things, so like you wanted your mom to be at your wedding.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, I definitely wanted my mom to be at my wedding, but I don't know if I ever thought about it that way because, again, I don't think I think that far ahead. Yeah. I do remember one of my friends saying, like, if you're doing this because you want your mom to be there, you might want to rethink it or something. But
which I'm not saying I even thought. Like, I knew you guys were in love. It just seemed like it was like the next logical step to start moving things, you know? Because you guys were so in love. It was like, and you had a time limit, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm off on that, but it just seemed to me, I was like, man, these two, this is rad. You know, that your mom was able to experience your wedding and things like that. Like that timing was really good.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we considered it that way.
Yeah.
Maybe subconsciously that was a factor, but as far as like my movements and Teake's movements, from what I'm aware of, it was very much just like,
this is what we want.
Yeah, we were just kind of like wrapped up in each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
The first person I said anything to the night that Walter came over, I said, we left, and I said, I don't know what to say other than I'm just infatuated. And then I was like,
yeah.
Infatuated is the word I use to describe it.
Oh my God.
It feels so funny to say that.
Just young love.
I don't ever say that word.
Yeah.
But then he did remember meeting beforehand, and I was like totally clueless. I did not remember that.
Yeah, Teake doesn't remember this, but we had met like 4 years or something. Maybe 2 or 3 years before the time she remembers meeting me.
It took 2 times for her to become infatuated.
Well, I mean, I was not that infatuatable. The first time she met me, I can't say I was as charming as the second time.
Yeah. I mean, dude, Walter, you get more charming as the ages go on, dude.
Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate that. I like to think so as well.
Like a fine wine.
Yeah, aging well. I was a fresh grape.
Also, I mean, I'm older than him, so he was also a lot younger then, and
the age difference was more of a concern at that time.
Yeah. But yeah, so it worked out. We're
Yeah.
married now.
It worked great.
It was with my mom's stuff. I'm just gonna run through this really quick, and then we can talk more about the things.
Yeah, for sure.
This is my podcast.
Yeah,
Sounds
dude,
good.
it totally. I want to hear what you want to say.
So, we got married. We were on a beach trip, and my mom until this point was doing pretty well. Like going out, I think she could even maybe drive again, or I think maybe able to drive, and she was going out and getting food with friends, and that was really good because she would go through periods where that couldn't happen.
And was that, can I ask a question? Sorry. Was that like because of cancer or like treatment? Because that stuff's real rough too, right? Like
it's usually treatment. Yeah,
really?
It's usually treatment. Her back hurt because, she had cancer in her back. So she was on fentanyl like regularly. She was always like on a constant, it's a patch that you wear and you just change it out. So she was on that all the time because of her back pain. But other than that, it's usually the treatment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what was I doing? Oh yeah. We were on vacation and I checked on her a couple times, like texted her and stuff. And, she at this point was with her boyfriend who, she met, I think right before I moved out. So they had been together for a few years, or I think they were together for like 7 years. This is like coming to the end of her life, 7 years. But she had texted me a couple times saying she was okay. She was kind of dizzy. They were actually out of town. They loved like racing and NASCAR and stuff. So they were somewhere doing that over the weekend and the time we were gone. And then I found out that she got a ride home early because she wasn't feeling good. And, we get home from vacation. My grandma calls me and she's like, hey, your mom is all bruised up and I don't know what happened. And she doesn't know what happened. So, it's been a few days of either her being alone or out of town, like out of state. And it turned out she was having seizures.
Oh my God.
And nobody knew she was having seizures, and she couldn't keep track of her appointments or anything. So even when she was lucid, like it just nothing was adding up. So I was like, okay, well, we just need to, get her to her doctors and whatever. And so I was like going to work, and it was just that week that, I feel like everybody was trying to like tell me like, no, this isn't good, So anyways, we can go back to the details of this if we want to, but I'll talk about everything forever. So she ends up, not coming back from that. And a few lucid moments that she had were ones where I got to talk to her about the DNR. I was her power of attorney. And, so when you do your like living will, you that's what you label in there and stuff. So, I'm young, I'm the only kid, and it's just me, my mom, and I'm having to make all these calls. And at this point, me and my grandma aren't talking. So I'm very nervous that they're going to treat me like the kid that they've always seen. And that's how I always get treated. Yeah. But this is like a responsibility that my mom gave me. And now I'm very nervous. You hear bad stories about loss in families and it causing a lot of issues. But it ended up being something I think that helped my relationships with my extended family in a sense. Like they were respectful. So that was helpful.
Yeah.
And like making amends with my grandma and stuff. So I remember my mom saying like, no, I don't want to go through this anymore, Yeah. And then we moved her to hospice, which is so much better than you think it is. Like it sounds, and it is a negative thing, but the place itself is so far from that. Because when you are in a situation where you're losing somebody, but everybody's day to day is just going the way it is, and you're just literally stuck in this place wondering, how can people be living their lives right now? Yeah. Like I remember looking down, we were at the James and looking out of the window on whatever floor it's on and seeing people walk around. And I'm like, how does this not stop your, like, you just can't, fathom it. It doesn't make sense that somebody that you love so much is dying. So hospice was cool because everybody was dying. It was just a place where everybody was in this place where you could look at each other and be like, we're in it, and like, it's a comforting thing. And it's honestly, we were at Kobacher in Columbus, and it is beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a gorgeous place.
Yeah.
So it was, and everybody there is just amazing. So that happened. We were only there for, like, some people are there for weeks. We were there for maybe 2 days. When my mom died, there were a lot of people that were there to help me. I was just talking to Mel about this today. And I remember that we had just moved into our apartment like that week. And people just came to get our keys and cleaned and put our stuff away for us. And somebody
the new one. Yeah.
Somebody I met in a grief share group just came and like dropped food off and just took my laundry, like just doing stuff, and then there's this period, and I know you guys talked about last week, you guys talked about the PSNS and the SNS when it comes to stress and stuff. And for me, that next period of time until her like service, you're just in like the total like fight or flight mode. Like, it's like when you think about those people that are in the situation where they can lift a car off somebody, you know what I'm talking about? When you're
Yeah.
It's almost like you're in that mode or something, like, at least for me. And I know other people have felt this way, where you're just like bulldozing through stuff you have to do.
Yeah.
And just trying to make it to this thing. And so it literally felt like as soon as that was over, I just remember feeling like sick for like a few days, just like, actually able to like process what little you can in that amount of time, and just like having your body break down because you just can't hold all that,
Yeah. Well, I remember doing that for my aunt, and it was like, you're just up constantly. You're fucking making decisions and like all this shit. And you get sick, like physically, because you just like, it's finally time to relax.
Yep.
And then all the feelings hit you like a fucking freight truck. Right.
So your body's like reacting to that, and then you're mentally like just screwed.
Just fucked. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was when a lot of my big stuff started like going, even like this stuff with God started getting bigger and creating more tension. And basically my mom's been dead 6 years now. And that's just the chronic source of like my struggles with God stuff is like, I've always been in and out of therapy for wanting, like, one of my core beliefs is like, I'll never be okay. And like, when I go to therapy now, I go, I just want to be okay with knowing that I'm never going to be okay.
Yeah.
Can we make that happen? And that's like kind of my ongoing struggle, especially with, talking about with the Bible, it talks about the eternal perspective and stuff. And that's just always been so hard for me. So, I think that was a big thing for me, with the next few years of my life and learning how to be an orphan. And then we had kids really quick. Like, we had kids. We had Elodie the next year.
Yeah.
And that was really hard for me. I was really upset and mad the whole time I was pregnant. And, at this point, when my mom was diagnosed, I'd been on and off different antidepressants and stuff, and was when I was pregnant with her. And then, whatever time goes by, and then we have Una too. And I just felt like, oh my gosh, our lives are just like never stopping. And I don't know who I am. I haven't known who I was since my mom died, because my mom was, everything to me forever. We were everything to each other, in a lot of ways. So
yeah, you lost a best friend, as well as your mom.
Well, in losing the only person that I felt like, saw every single thing about me and was one of the most accepting people ever. Like it wouldn't suck so hard if it wasn't somebody who was so good at like loving you for who you are.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that that's a huge component. Like after that was gone, it's like that's a thing that's really hard for me. Like I struggle with being okay with who I am and being okay with like the chaos of life.
Yeah.
And that's I don't know, it stresses me out. And so this year with quarantine, I was kind of like, wow, I'm just getting along a lot better with people in my house. Like, I think I need to change my priorities because these people that I live with matter the most. And when I'm stressed and anxious and have anxiety, like it gets taken out on the people that I'm closest to, and it's just not been good. So, those are the things that played into like my decision to actually leave the church that we were at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a huge component of that towards the like final decision for me was looking back at my mom's life and understanding and knowing like my mom from a really young age accepted Jesus as her personal savior. And we had talked about that on occasion. But she was never one to like do things a specific way. She just did what she wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I remember when she was dying, she wasn't afraid to die. And that was like something that everybody I was close to in the church, specifically because they cared about me and they cared about her. And they would pray constantly that she wouldn't be afraid of dying and that she wouldn't. And she wasn't. So that was like a really crazy thing for me because basically at this time, you know, this past summer, I was like, you know what, if Jesus is really real and if God is really real, then he loved my mom no matter what. And those prayers were answered and like he accepted her for what she was and how she lived her life. And for me, I was just like, I just don't feel like any part of me likes how I'm living my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mean in regards to the amount of time you spent in like meetings and focused on being a better Christian in XYZ manners? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think for me, a lot of it, the people that I'm close to and have always been close to were never people that put pressure on me to be a different way. It was always me internally, but I think, going to meetings that often, especially after you didn't want to, that was also really hard because it was a point of tension more for me than it was for you. But looking back too, it was always like that. Like I was just always unhappy with where you were at and what you were doing.
Yeah.
And that was something that changed during the beginning of this year where I was like, I felt like I had always, you know, even last year, I always wanted to be more accepting of the things that you like care about and want to do or don't want to do. Like that's one of my hardest struggles with myself is like, I'm not as flexible, you know, as I want to be. I forget exactly what we were saying.
We were talking about, you said quarantine kind of gave you space, I guess. You asked
me a question, but I don't remember.
You had said that you were thinking about how your mom wasn't afraid.
Oh yeah, you were saying about the timeline though. Was it meetings and living my life and priorities in that sense?
Yeah, because you said that the quarantine gave you space to kind of like reflect on that and reflect on what you wanted to prioritize.
Yeah, a big thing that stuck out to me was like I can't live my life the way I did before I had kids. So that was a component of like before we had kids, we could do all of this structure and this high commitment stuff. But after having kids, it was still treated that way.
Yeah.
And then when we had the quarantine, I was like, oh my God, like, how could I have thought that that's how my life should look right now when I have these kids this little?
Yeah.
And they need so much and everything is so consuming. Like, I think just being in the house with them and seeing how that compared to like some of my coworkers, because they're young, you know, they're bored. And I'm like, I'm never bored.
Oh my God, absolutely not.
So just having like those comparisons, like to be like, this is a lot, this is exhausting. And to think that there were maybe people that had done it before me and they didn't see it that way. They like, you know, people who structure these things in the church, to not see that as a necessity, to like not see a break. And
Dude,
like that really was a little disconcerting to me. And
Sarah and I have talked about that of like with kids, it's like, how do you, you know, our son's only with us, you know, at that time he was only with us 3 days a week, and like 2 of those were meeting days. And we would have to switch off like who was going to what meeting and stuff. And it was like when we would just skip, like people were like, well, we don't think you're devoting a lot of time. And it's like, I got to take care of my kid.
Yeah.
And then I would look at like leaders and stuff, and they were only seeing their kids like once a week, you know? And I was like, I'm not cool with that. And, you know, I feel like I lost a lot of time like with my family over that stuff. And there was this like standard that was unspoken, but it was there.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And I think for me, I did a lot of that. I enforced a lot of that on myself. Like, I'm not somebody to break out of the mold. I'm somebody who wants to know the rules and stay in line in those ways. So I would be, and I've joked about this before, like I've been like, you know, I will ruin my kids over trying to get somewhere on time. Like, I'm like, we're going to the zoo. We're going to see the koala bears. Like, this is so important. And it's not. And them crying on the couch is way more important. But I'm the person that's like, hey, we got to get to this thing on time. Yeah. And this is my goal. This is what's happening. And so those types of things were like, you think about that over years of your life, multiple times a week. And that's really hard actually on my relationships with my kids, and also how I view myself, because again, that's not something I really, despise my lack of patience. And so having to see that over and over is like, it really weighs on me.
Yeah. Yeah. Where do you think you are with God now? Like after leaving the church, like, do you, I think I ask people this question a lot when they leave. It's like, do you still read? Do you pray? Like, are you know?
I think there's times where I prayed because I wanted to, and those times still happen, you know, if it's like a car thing, like in the car and whatever, by myself. It's not, and then the shower is always a place where I'm like reflective. Yeah. And generally a prayer place too. So, you know, if it comes to me, it does. I haven't read anything recently, but I do always have access to it on my phone. Like I was reading a devotional through one of those like Bible apps on boundaries. And I do feel like there's good stuff that you can learn about, and there's good things that can be pulled from that and used in things like devotionals. But as far as like moving towards something more disciplined, I'm not really doing that right now. I think coming from a place where it's kind of like, I mean, I'm breaking out of the mold of like, this is the way you do it and this is the only way. Like I have to break myself out of that, and it's taking time.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I've thought about checking out different churches and seeing what happens with that. There are things that happened in my life that I just don't know if I can deny, that there's a loving God out there, like especially with my mom and how things ended. And I don't know. There's things about that, but I don't feel so like trapped that things have to be a certain way.
Yeah.
And I think that's mainly where I'm at. And that's, I just want to find freedom in whatever I do.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. That's rad.
Yeah.
Where are you with grief stuff?
There's like a lot there always. I mean,
That's a big question.
Yeah, but I don't mind it. You know, there's I think it was our anniversary. Our anniversary is like right around the time that my mom's birthday is, and the fall, which I feel like, I don't know, maybe not everybody feels like this, but the fall for me is so like sensory overload that it always reminds you of things. Like,
yeah, it's the reminiscent period for sure.
It really is. Yeah. So having it be, you know, our anniversary and having it be like my mom's birthday and stuff. More recently, I was able to like reflect on the time right after she died. And I was thinking like, this was a period of time where I didn't realize how out of control my anxiety had gotten. I was checking the smoke detector all the time, and I was staying up till 5 a.m. and I was deleting my Facebook account because I thought somebody would come like try to take my kids. I was thinking our house was going to burn down all the time. And I remember specifically there being like one night where Walter was, we were walking up to bed and I just broke down on the stairs, and he was like, what? And I was like, I don't want to go to bed. I can't sleep. Like, it was like torture to go to bed because I wasn't sleeping. And that was the first time I had told him like this stuff was going on. And a few months ago when I was thinking about that, or like even last month, I don't know, I just thought, man, that was totally appropriate. Like, this is, it was a traumatic event to lose the like one person in the world that I would always need, you know?
Yeah.
So I think back to that and I'm like, you weren't crazy, or, you know, you weren't.
No.
Well,
like, I think that
I wish I would have like talked about it.
Yeah.
And like, I definitely feel like it helped to go to therapy after that, but it wasn't wrong to have that be a response.
Well, I think too, like with anxiety, a lot of times it's like the control part of you.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking back to like, you know, or not even subconsciously, like it's happening where you're like reminiscing about your mom and shit. It's like a period of time that you couldn't control.
Right.
You know, so running and like checking these things on like things that you can control. Like I can try and control my house from burning down.
Right.
You know, and like, being someone who has like really crazy manic and depressed phases, like I know I get into those, and it's like, it's real easy to feel like you're crazy. But I think that it's normal. I mean, dude, you went through so much, Teake, and like, you're a strong person, but like, I think having those, like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I really respect you, and I think you're super strong for going through this stuff and like coming out the other side. And, you know, I honestly think that you could help tons of people through grief and things like that, through what you've experienced.
I'd really like to figure out a way to do that. It's definitely an overwhelming idea, but I do like the idea. I mean, when we were in that church, I did help come up with a grief group for like younger people, because that's a big, I think that's a big thing in the world in general that people don't really realize or think is, at least in America, like you don't think that people who are young don't have parents. Yeah. And that can be really sad and hard. Like every week someone asks me about my mom, like, or my parents.
Yeah.
At least once a week. And it's one of those things where it's like, oh no.
Yeah. Like a small thing of like, what's your mom do? And you're like,
Yep. How'd your mom? Where do your parents live? Like that happens every week.
Dude, especially being in the hair industry.
Yeah.
Like you just get those like, how's the weather questions that hit on a deeper level.
Yeah. And so there was this group that I kind of helped come up with, and that was the type of stuff that we could talk about. So that was good. I couldn't do it for very long because it was mostly for the younger groups, and we met at different nights. But it was cool to start that, to have like people who were, you know, in their 20s or had whatever and had lost their parents young, to be able to talk about it in a place that made sense.
Yeah.
So something like that would be cool again. And then I think one of the bigger things, when you were saying where are you at with grief, like one of the big components to how I related to it, because the thing about it is it really does go all over the place. It's not like you don't get through it really. Like it's just always there and shows up in different ways. But one of the things I learned was that my mom, and it seems so like obvious, but that she was too important and too much of a part of my life to like not talk about and not make a part of the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So that was a huge change in how grief and my relationship changed. At first it was really hard though, because I don't have the history that other people, like I don't have someone else to share a history with. Like, you know, Walter he wasn't there for that long.
It's not like you have a sister or a brother.
Right. Like it's different where I was telling this to my friend and she was like, that makes so much sense. Because when her husband died, she had her kids to be like, oh my gosh, like he would have loved this thing. And they all are like, yeah, he would have loved that thing, you know? And it's not like that. I don't have that to some degree, but there's definitely a component where like my mom is a part of my life every day still. And that's not necessarily true for like the people around me.
Yeah. But it's still, what you're saying is it's still okay. Because I think that a lot of people are like, well, you know, there's got to be a moment of moving on. But like, no. I love what you said. Like my mom was too important to me to not like actively make her a part of my life for the rest of my life. That was a
super,
see, that's fucking incredible. Like I've never thought of death in that way. I've always been the one where it's like, got to move on to the next thing. And because I have you know, I've talked about it on podcasts before, but like I have real bad panic attacks and shit when like I can't go to funerals anymore. I've been to too many. They fuck me up when I'm there. So it's like, you know, Sarah's grandmother passed away this year. And like she was like, look, I know you can't come. You know what I mean? Like I know. And she was super like loving and like respectful of that. But like I don't know. Like, is that a bad way to grieve? Like, you know, like what are the first steps into this process of like being okay with grief, you know?
Are you talking about when you can't go to
or just anything, you know? Like, I guess I don't know how to grieve properly, or is there a proper way?
No, I don't think that there's a proper way. I think that we're all going to be hit with different components of it at different times. Like there's not a linear line that you can walk.
Yeah.
And you know, everybody's relationships with whoever they're losing are very different. Like even if it's even if it's somebody who they lose their mom and they still have their brother, like their brother is going to have a different relationship with the parent. Right. And, and your parents play so many roles. That's like my mom played so many roles in my life. And, you know, there was a mom role and there's roles within that. But there's also like the friend role and what I call her the comrade role, because we went through so many things and have the same battle scars. So I think it's just there's so many ways that you can go with it because people have different roles and people mean different things. And again, like even like the time of year could matter, you know, it's like, it's just different and unique. I do feel like when you're dealing with a grieving person, there's a little bit more like what I would perceive as being like helpful or not helpful, not necessarily like right or wrong.
That's a good thing. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah.
Because I think that's super helpful.
It's definitely like all I've got is my perspective, but
well, it's like when you're a parent. It's like, you know, we've talked about with Sarah. It's like, you know, people were like, there were times where people would be like, oh, you'll know when you have a kid. And it's like, well, she's raising a son, you know, It's like, that's not helpful to say to someone, you know,
right.
Or someone who's like, you need to be careful talking about like kids with everyone you meet, because some people can't have kids or struggle with it, you know?
Yeah. And I felt that same way. Like, I love that there's an awareness of those things happening.
Yeah.
That people do need to be more cautious of those things because it totally needs to happen. But I do in a similar vein feel like if grief wasn't so taboo, then it would be fine to ask those questions. But because it's such an awkward thing for people to talk about, then like, I do feel like these questions got to go. Like, it's either got to be safe for people to talk about these things, or like the questions have to go. Because if you say, how's your mom? And I'm like, she's dead. Then you're going to either say like, I'm sorry and feel weird, or ask how it happened, which is so strange.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like,
well, and dude, and I'm sorry. Like, it's just so like, you never know what to say to somebody when they lose somebody. And like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't think fucking helps anyone.
Right. And and there's some of that is true for me now, that I still feel that way when I'm talking to somebody who's lost someone, previously. If it's something current, there's things I think that I can maybe offer to you guys that would be helpful. But like later on, if you don't know somebody's life, it is one of those, it's hard to come back to. But I feel like I wish it was treated generally like not every young person has parents. Like that's,
right.
It's just like a lot of things that we assume these days, right? And it would be nice to change that too, because it feels awkward to have to tell somebody, like, to reassure somebody else in the time that they ask you a question. And you're like, you're actually dead. And this is awkward. So I'm gonna make sure you're okay with that you brought that up. And whatever.
I feel like some of this too, you learn behind a chair when you talk to people constantly, because you've been put in that awkward moment. I've done it. So now I don't bring up people's parents unless they mention them and shit. Like, because, or like their kids or anything, it's just like, if they mention something, it's like, oh, my wife. And it's like, oh, they got a wife. All right, let's talk about the wife. You know what I mean?
We just talked about that. I started this mindful meetup group, and we were just talking about that. Yeah. Like, we were like, hey, everybody that does hair here, do you feel like we got pretty good at this just through practice? I really do think that it's changed that the way I relate with people, even with like a culture of like using correct pronouns, like things like that. It's like, I know, because I have people in my chair constantly that you don't know what their thing is. So you don't say like, what's up, man? You know what I mean? Like, you don't like, you have to like know somebody from nothing.
Yeah. And you have to like start building on that relationship. Right. So what are things, like, what are some things that we can do as people, that are helpful to people who are grieving?
I think a mistake that we make when dealing with grief, as somebody who's just like a supportive role or whatever, or somebody that knows somebody who's grieving. I think two mistakes are like backing away too much, or making it about ourselves, like what we can do or what we can contribute or how we'll, like, getting too focused on like, I don't want to like be in the way, or I don't want to, like, it's still a focus on us rather than like, what can I do for this person?
Yeah.
And trying to navigate like them and their situation instead of like making it about us. So I don't know. Like, I think it's cool. The thing, what you were saying about the funeral, like for me personally, I don't really care if people were going to come to my funeral or my mom's funeral. Like, that's cool, but I don't put a lot of weight on that.
Yeah.
And I think it's good that Sarah, said you guys worked that stuff out.
Yeah.
But I think in general, like, I don't know. I guess I haven't thought a bunch about funerals when it comes to somebody being like, I don't think I can go to that funeral. It does seem a little bit more self-focused.
Yeah.
But I feel like, again, that's a relational thing. Like, it really just depends.
It's one of those things that, like, when it's this weird thing in my brain that happens around death where, like, it doesn't matter who it is or what funeral it is, but like when I go, I think for like weeks afterwards, I'm so focused on death that I start like seeing my loved ones dead. Like, it's like this PTSD thing goes off in my brain where I'm like, everybody's going to die. And my brain's trying to like, solve that in my head, if that makes sense, where it's like, these are the brutal things that could happen so that you're ready for when they do die, like it's real weird. So, and that doesn't happen as like, I don't see people in caskets, like, not many people know, like, how many funerals they've been to, like by number, unless it's been very few. Whereas like I've been to like 52, so it's weird. Like, and I know like my shit is different. Like we've been talking about having another group of dudes on, that have a podcast about death. Cause I want to ask them questions about this shit. Like, hey, what's up with this? But I guess like, when people say I'm in grieving, it's like, for me, I feel like, oh, those are the panic attacks, like that's like, that shit sucks. Like, and, I don't know if I'm trying to like in my head, stop myself from grieving or.
When you're like panicking, you mean?
Yeah. Like, am I like, or not even when I'm like, when I like remove myself away from the situation of death. Of like just kind of not going to a funeral, not having to deal with it, Yeah. Maybe I'm trying to like take myself away from a grieving period or self-protect. I don't know. My situation.
It sounds like you're like, I mean, even just having those feelings afterwards for a while would be a lot to deter. Like, that's enough to deter somebody from going.
Yeah,
so.
It's fucked up. I don't like it. So I try and stay away from it.
Else, but it seems like that alone could be like, I don't know if I can go through this after.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fucked up. But, and like my shit's different. I guess like I just, whatever can help. Cause like, I don't even know if it is our job to help, like, to help people grieve. I don't know, like I just want to be more mindful when people are grieving.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure it's different depending on where people are at in their lives. But when you're young and you lose somebody, you are put in the role of helping people figure out how to help people grieve. And like, that's another category of things where you have to be just like figure out how to be more lenient and more, I don't know, understanding and flexible with people. And like, you have to figure out how to like share things that you don't necessarily understand because you're going through all this stuff.
Yeah.
And like give people, like let them know what you need. That's like a huge thing as a griever, because they can't read your mind. And a lot of people do want to help. They just don't know how. But so I think that can be like a two-way street. Like as a griever, you need to be filling people in on what you need and understand that people are there and they want to help. Yeah. And on the other end, being somebody who wants to be supportive, it's more like those roles, like what I was saying earlier, that happened for us, where it's like, oh, I know that they just moved into their place. Let me get their keys and see if it needs cleaned.
Yeah.
Or like, hey, Teake, I'm running to the store. What can I bring you? It's more of a like, what can I do? Or I'm doing this thing versus like, let me know if you need anything.
Yeah.
Let me know how I can help. Like, because honestly, you're so messed up in your brain that you just don't know how anyone can help you. So those are good ways to like support somebody, is just like make yourself available, but also like present some sort of like idea, or just be
like, even coming up with how you need help can feel like a burden in those times, right? When someone's like, whatever you need, I'm here to do. And you're like, I don't even have the bandwidth to think about what I need.
Similar to having a newborn.
Yeah. Like, I'm just fucking wiped.
Yeah.
Ask me to think about what could be better.
Chipotle. Right. I need Chipotle. Put it in front of my face.
Well, yeah, just say like, hey, do you want Chipotle?
Yeah. Well, dude, somebody told me that like a while ago. It was like, just ask them what kind of food they like. And if they're not hungry, they'll tell you like, oh, it's okay. You know what I mean? Like, don't ask like how I can help you, because it's hard to come up with those things. Ask specific questions of like, what kind of food do you like, you know, and just drop it off.
And I think if you're close to somebody, like, not to get too into this, but I think if you're close to somebody, instead of asking like, how are you doing? Or are you doing okay? Like, being able to say like, how's this last hour been for you? Or like, how is this specific event that happened? I know that you were going to this thing. Yeah. Like, just being more honed in on like them as a person. I think,
breaking it down to such a small moment in time and things like that probably help a lot. Right. And, you know, these are just points that I think are good to know, because I'm not trying to say everybody needs to change, but like, if you want to, for sure, meet somebody where they're at, like where they're at is nowhere and everywhere at the same time. Yeah. So like, they need to be guided into like a conversation, even a lot of time. Well, and I think that a lot of churches haven't dealt with this stuff very well. So the Tome wants to be a spot that can help grievers, you know, like I want to be like, I want to know what I could do that would be detrimental to someone, so that I can avoid that and just be helpful. Yeah. You know, and love people. It's always going to be hard to know those things, right? Yeah. But I think it's more about being able to have open conversations. Again, like we talk about like needing safe spaces, but if we have vulnerability and like honesty, then those kinds of conversations can go a lot better. And we're allowed, again, like when we're dealing with racism, like in white privilege, we're allowed to make mistakes and not understand things, and ask for forgiveness and try to improve. And I think that's just, it fits in with like how to handle grief too. Yeah. We just have to be honest with where we're at. You know, if you're like, I don't know what to do and I'm really sorry. There's a way to do that and help someone. And then there's a way to do that and make it about yourself. So I think what I will say is just like, again, checking where that comes from, or like checking your motives there with that stuff. Yeah. Are you feeling worried that you look dumb because you don't know how to help somebody who's grieving or whatever? What do you think were some of the things that you were most grateful for, like after your mom passed? There was a specific day during that week where I just sat on the floor and looked through all the pictures I had, and like people would come in and out of the house and do that with me. Yeah. That is something that is just really powerful for me. I love pictures of like old pictures and stuff, and it's how I visualize my like memories. Yeah. So that was really good. I remember that two of the young kids in our family made me cards. That was like, I don't think I'll ever forget that. They, dropped off these little handwritten cards that were just, drawings of them or us or whatever. Yeah. And that being really sweet. I had the blanket I'm using right now is actually from my clients, and it's one that I grab whenever I feel like sad. I call it my special blanket, and Elodie like knows that it is related to when my mom died, so she'll like get it for me. Oh, if I'm like sad or anything. Jesus, what a sweet baby angel. That's sweet. One time she was using it and she was like, I need you to take this. It's your special blanket. Oh,
It's your blanket.
God, what a sweet angel.
It's okay.
Dude. Have you like been able to talk with your daughters about this stuff?
Yeah, I think to some degree.
Yeah.
Walter, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've talked to them about it. I think it's really hard to know how, I mean, it's such a weird concept.
Yeah.
To have to confront your kids with at such an early age.
But we have ever since Elle was a baby. Like, it's never not been a weirdly harsh truth.
Yeah.
In some
she
way.
knows who her grandma is.
Yeah. And like, that's the only way you can really do it. You know, like, she is 5, so she understands what she understands. Like, when she was 2, we still told her in a way that made the most sense when she was 2, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely hard. It's hard to have her not be a part of this in a very real way. And it's hard all the time. Because things change all the time. She was never around when I had kids. So there's a whole different factor of being able to like relate and have conversations that I'll never get to have. And that's painful.
Yeah, it's super, I'm sure.
Yeah. But they know like her favorite color was purple. So
I latched onto that one.
So this past holiday, that's another thing though with grief, and it can take a while, but it's good to start your own traditions.
Yeah.
Lose somebody. And when we got married, we knew, you know, my mom wasn't going to live forever. So we started incorporating some of my mom and I's like regularly scheduled traditions.
Yeah.
So Christmas and stuff, we do some stuff that me and my mom did. And it was nice to incorporate those things beforehand. So it wasn't just, you know, like this thing that we did after. We kind of molded things together.
Yeah.
But afterwards, a couple things settled into place like throughout the first couple years. Like the day she died, we like to go to Kobacher and bring food there.
Yeah.
And then hang out because it's pretty. And then with her birthday, that's when we do pumpkins.
Yeah.
And she was a big Halloween fan. But this year, Elodie painted her pumpkin purple, and it was just so sweet. Like, she's just sweet like that, because that was my mom's, even her service, everybody wore purple because it was her favorite color forever. So yeah, my kids definitely know things. I don't know how much Una gets because
it's hard to know how much Una gets about anything.
But
she gets everything and nothing at the same time.
So true.
Yeah.
She is a different kind of person.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think just kids at that age too. It's like they can say some of the wisest shit you've ever heard, and then turn around and just do something. You're like, "What are you doing?
How are you both of these people?"
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, and I love that. I love that your mom lives on through like her traditions, and like pictures and like the blanket and stuff. Like, that's awesome. It really like kind of brings your mom into your household on the daily. Which is super cool.
Yeah, I think that stuff, because it's painful, you can have a gut reaction to kind of like not want to do it. Mm-hmm. But I think like it just becomes like an elephant in the room at a certain point, right? Like, everyone knows someone should be somewhere, or there's someone you miss, or, like if you're hanging out with your friend and you're like, oh, but their mom isn't here, or like everyone knows that. Yeah. Your friend knows that. And it's like, nobody's doing anyone any favors. Just by trying to like not bring up the thing that hurts. It's like, it hurts and it's going to hurt. So just like incorporate that pain into your life. Yeah. Because there's also something beautiful about like, the only reason it hurts is because of what a beautiful thing you had.
I think that's actually the other thing too for me with God stuff is that like there's a huge part of me that's like I'm going to miss her until the day I die and it will hurt until then. And so to me there's also a lot of truth in like relationships are meant to be eternal because this wouldn't be this, it wouldn't hurt this fucking bad. Yeah. And always if that wasn't true. So that's a thing too that I kind of go back to when it comes to like spirituality and stuff.
Yeah.
You miss somebody forever if it wasn't meant to be a relationship that stuck.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, I love you, Teake.
I love you too, Teake.
Love you.
I think that yeah, I just I think that seeing your growth and things like that, and who, just like the way you were talking about, like, I want to like love my life, and I want to do things that I love, like my mom and stuff, like, maybe it's cliche, but like, I really do think that your mom is like super proud of who you are becoming,
Mm-hmm.
And that shit's rad. And you're a great mom, I respect you for that. I tell people, and I probably said it on the podcast, I don't know. Usually I like take a lot of medicine for these things, but I didn't take any tonight. But I tell people about the time, Sarah, when she lost her first kid, like a year to the date, like we open up our door and there was just a flower, like an orchid sitting on our doorstep. And like, you got that for her.
Mm-hmm.
Like the things you've been through has created like, a very compassionate person when it comes to grief. And like, that meant so much to me and Sarah when you did that. And I'm super thankful that you're friends with her.
Well, it's like, I appreciate you saying that, but I think that I'm made for that stuff. Like I'm just made to be somebody who gets in the shit with people. Like, yeah. I don't really see another way. And I think, I hope I'm not coming off like a way that sounds like this is how you should do things or not do things, because I don't obviously know.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it's like to be somebody I'm not. And I think the thing about me being able to be somebody who doesn't get uncomfortable in those tough spots with people is going through what I did. But I think it's also weirdly a place where I can't for some reason have any expectations on myself or the other person going through it.
Yeah.
And that is like the person that I want to be every day and the person that I'm not. So it literally makes me feel like I'm exactly who I want to be. And who I like feel like I am at my core when I'm with somebody in their shit.
Yeah.
Because it takes away everything that isn't going on, and it puts me like in that moment.
Yeah.
So when you struggle with anxiety the way that I do, it's such a relief to be taken out of those times. And I don't know. I can't do anything but be like myself. I'm really raw and very vulnerable, and so those things don't scare me at all, like being in the shit.
Yeah. Well, I'm thankful for it.
Absolutely. I'm very thankful to be married to such a courageous, loving, caring woman.
For sure. Dude.
I'm lucky.
Hell yeah. Yeah, you are, dude.
Honey, did you have a verse that you wanted to share with people?
I think the only thing I'm sure I could come up with so many things because I could just talk forever and ever and ever.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I think I thought of through my journey, which I know we didn't get into too much of like my stuff towards the end of my story, but I think a big issue that I have is my motivation and what motivates me. And I know Walter and I have talked about this, and you guys have talked a little bit on the podcast, but about fear and love and stuff. And I'm really motivated by fear. I'm driven by it. Like, it controls a lot of my actions. And it's not something like that I see in Walter. He's not really like that. And I really value that and appreciate his model of that. So when I think about, you know, my most recent years of being really unhappy with myself, I think that that's a big component, is being driven by fear. And I just think it would be smart if we could all take more time to examine our motivation. So that was really what I was thinking, was just the term, like, examining your motivations, not feeling some type of way about it, like negative or positive or whatever, but just like understanding where it comes from.
Yeah.
Like what's pushing you and what's, you know, behind it all.
Yeah.
Because when it's fear, it's just not good for anybody.
One, it's not who you really are, right? Like, I think you were talking about, like, you know, you try and be who you are. And when you're like doing everything out of fear, that's not like,
yeah, there's no freedom in it.
Yeah. So that's not who you really are. You're just doing things because you're afraid.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I think that's fucking incredible.
Yeah. That's
I
some
love
good
that
shit.
verse.
Thanks.
Yeah. Think about what motivates you.
Right.
Hell yeah. Did you have any books that you read when you were like going through some of this stuff that might help people? Or
I think that's another thing that's hard, is like, I actually had people give me books when my mom died, and that was just so like, I want a book.
Yeah. I don't want to fucking read right now.
Yeah, like that was a thing that right afterwards that I'm like, yeah, no. So I guess I'm still kind of like,
yeah, for sure.
I tried to read a C.S. Lewis book.
Yeah,
and because I love C.S. Lewis, his writing is awesome. But I tried to read. He had this book called A Grief Observed about his wife after she died. In the first, I don't even know if it was the first like chapter, but he started talking about being afraid that he wouldn't remember her, and I was like, oh shit, I haven't even thought about that.
It just fucked you up.
It like literally was like a page in, and I was like, oh well, I guess that's a fear now. Like, I'm thinking this book will be something I can relate to, and I honestly think it probably would be at this point. But
yeah,
at that point, I was like, no.
It's probably maybe the best thing's not to like read a earth-shattering book right after you lose someone.
Right.
Give it like 6 or 7 years and then fucking move into it.
Well, and I do think that there's some truth to that too. Like, I'm not sitting here an expert. I think in 10 years, I'm going to look back at this time and think, like I had said earlier, that was a traumatic time, because it still fucking is to me. It's very like 6 years to lose your entire like life and sense of self and being from this person who played this huge role in literally being an orphan. Like, I have no parents. I know that I'm in my 30s, but I'm still an orphan.
Yeah.
To have that happen, it still hasn't been that long. So I think that's one thing I've been trying to look at when I get into places where I have to face myself and deal with myself and I don't like myself, is really realizing like I'm still in some sort of thick of it, especially having young kids. Like, there's just been so many things about my life that have changed really rapidly. Yeah. And you know, Una's now going to be 3, and I feel like we're finally out of this stage, or almost out of a stage of chaos in the house, and like not being able to think and or take time for yourself. So I think about myself in 10 years, and I think I'll look back at this and say that was wild. Yeah, you know. So I'm trying to hold on to that and give myself a break when you know, I'm in the shit. Yeah. It's not like you grieved so hard in the first 6 years that you won the grieving. Like, it's not like you're done with it. It's going to be like, it definitely, but it does look different. I guess that's another, like, a positive is like, you do learn, like, maybe, you know, David, where you're at is, trying to push stuff aside or not deal with certain things. But when you start to work through stuff, even in a minor scale, like I can let myself pull my car over and cry and then move on. Yeah. Like I used to get mad. I used to get mad at myself for getting upset. And then I wouldn't like let it happen.
Yeah.
And even now it gets annoying. Like sometimes grief gets really annoying. Like you want to just be okay and you can't be.
Yeah.
So that'll happen still occasionally where it just like butts its fucking head in. And I'm like, no, dude, like I'm doing this thing and I really don't want to deal with you right now.
You start kind of feeling like you don't want to be with yourself.
Yeah. You know? And there's the component of like, I thought I was over this thing. Like you have to hit that. So I think I've hit that point where I'm like, I guess what? I'm never going to be over it. And so that's helped me be okay with whatever I'm at and wherever I'm at, is to know like I'm never going to be over it and she can always be a part of this and this is always going to hurt.
Yeah.
It's like this, it sucks but that's where it's at and we can still live our lives and she can still be a part of it. And that's what I have left. She can't help me with the kids. She can't, like I can't relate to her. Those things are gone and it fucking blows. But I don't know. Just keeping her as a part of my life and understanding that it's always going to look different and change as far as grief goes is where I'm at right now.
For sure. Yeah. Dude, thanks so much for like coming on and talking about this stuff. I know it's hard and, but I think it's super awesome that you're willing to share it and, you know, share your journey with people.
Thanks.
You did great, honey.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I know you were a little nervous coming in, but
I don't like free form things.
I know.
I feel completely awkward not having like pages of notes in front of me.
You did great.
I think you did great. It was super. We could understand everything you said.
Oh.
It was raw. It was genuine. And I think that you have a lot to offer people. So
sure.
I'm happy to have you as an entry in the tome.
Oh yeah, thanks.
And hopefully more.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. I'm super stoked about this like book club kind of thing that you've started up, and like I couldn't come to the first one because we're in the throes of childhood right now. But
and now there'll be Zoom, so that'll be nice too. I didn't know we would get to meet in person.
Yeah,
so.
For sure. Yeah. No, and so I'm excited to start doing that, like with a bunch of people who are super cool. One of them's also another saint. So isn't Colin? I love Colin. Saint Colin. My wife. Sarah. It's just a fucking meeting of the saints, dude. I love it.
Oh my God.
I love it.
It's not your meeting.
Possibly,
hey, excuse me.
There's a meeting. Possible future saint that goes, I think we might get one of them in here as a saint.
Who is that?
Oh, you'll see.
Oh, dude.
Just wait.
Are you burying the lead on me? The fucking one of the hosts of the fucking show, dude.
Yeah, be like, we have a surprise guest this week.
Yeah, I don't know who it is. No, I'm pumped about it. I'm really stoked. Sarah came back from that and thought it was incredible.
We didn't really say anything about it. You just went into like how it's cool to have it, but we didn't talk on the podcast about what it is. Really,
I think you said something.
Well, we can explain real quick. Teake is doing a mindfulness meetup, I guess is what we're kind of calling it. There's this magazine that's really fantastic called Breathe out of the UK.
We brought some stuff up about it last week.
Yeah.
Or 2 weeks ago.
About separating yourself from stuff and your PSNS versus your SNS, which is your parasympathetic nervous system versus your sympathetic nervous system. It's a great magazine, and it kind of spawned this thing where we're meeting up with people, a small group of people, social distancing, and kind of just talking about reading a couple essays out of this book and talking about our experiences with whatever it is. A lot of them will be about like anxiety or self-actualization, or, you know, kind of topics that are a little more growth focused.
Yeah.
And I think it's really rad that Teake put it together and got people who were excited about it to come along.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm super pumped about it. Like, I can't wait to be involved in it because I need some mindfulness in my life.
Yeah, I think, and it's like one of those things you always need a reminder on, you know? It's like we're never good at it.
No, fuck no. Dude, I was like doing so good at meditating for about 3 weeks, and then I let it go, and now my spirit hates me.
Rejected by your own spirit.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Well, hell yeah. I love this. I'm glad that we finally got you on here, Teake. You are a welcomed addition to the tome.
Thanks. Glad I'm here.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. I think that's it, dude. We got a verse. We talked about some grief.
Follow us on everything at Tome of Chaos Podcast. Email us questions or whatever the fuck at Tome of Chaos Podcast at gmail.com.
Yep.
Honey, did you have anything you want to shout out or plug?
I don't think so. I don't. Probably like a bunch of TV shows or like movies. That's all I got.
Like a quick couple you want to fire off?
No, I don't think I do.
Okay.
Too many.
Also, I think that if you have any questions about grief, shoot us an email and one of us can ask Teake about it.
Yeah, Dave will ask Teake.
Oh, shit. Yeah, we were supposed to be live on Twitch, but
yeah, that's probably not going to happen.
But Mike DeWine's a coward, and we can't stop this fucking virus in Ohio, so it's not going to happen for a while. Me and Walter are going to be separate on the podcast for a while, so, and I don't even want to figure out that IT nightmare.
I guess that is my only plug would have to do with supporting local small businesses.
Fuck yeah.
Like, just with everything going on, if you can figure out for the holidays how to support local businesses, stuff like that, because me and Dave are both at small businesses and it's a stressful time.
Hair people are kind of getting fucked because it's like, we're not going to make an order to keep people at home, but we are going to strongly suggest it. So hair people are not a necessity, but we're still working, but we're not making as much money as we used to. Like, it's a weird time right now to be in the hair business. So
the service industry in general, I think, like,
for sure, it's like what is essential and what's not, you know?
Yep.
So it's brutal. Buy gift certificates for hair places and food places and whatever you can do. Like, I think that's a great plug.
The only one I got.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Well, we love you all, and we hope chaos walks with you this week. And I hope that if you're out there grieving, this helped a lot.
You can, please tell me, like, if people do want to talk about it. I'm an open book, and I really do like to. There's no wrong question if you have questions, or there's no wrong way to be like raw or vulnerable with me either. If you're like out there and you need somebody to talk to.
For sure. Send us emails about it. We've started a missions group, you know, with Madeline, and now we got a grief group with Teake. It'll be good. Just send some emails. And we love you. We love you all. Peace out.